Oh my God, that type of. Welcome to another episode of the Law Offices of Twinkle.
Of Twinkle Twinkle Little
I
Star
don't know what
and
just.
Associates. Twinkle.
I don't know what show I'm doing.
That's your other podcast that's about hobbits.
It's all about fairies. It's all about TwinkerBell. Anyway, the Law Office. Let me just start this over again. Welcome to another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on this March 23rd, 2022. We're just rolling right along right now. Putin has still not vanquished Ukraine. They're holding their own quite well, which is quite surprising, honestly. Today, we're not going to be talking about that. We've got something completely different. Our client for today is Singin Outta The Box.
Behold, trapped in a hellscape of their own invention, socially unaware old white men bound by the pretense of being fake lawyers yet knowing no law, no exquisite Latin terminology, they are inexplicably compelled to quibble over minutia, squabble over triflings, and bicker like those who value their backyards far too highly without even knowing the difference between an easement and an alleyway. At this very moment, you have entered the heart of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Let's get started.
Who wrote the Book of Love? What's the frequency, Kenneth? Where is my mind? How can you mend a broken heart? Why do birds sing so gay? When will I see you again? I sound like William Shatner. Are friends electric? For untold decades, these questions have stumped music aficionados, scientists, philosophers, alchemists, pastry chefs, scullery maids, cross-stitchers and switch hitters, beat cops and shortstops. Well, be befuddled no longer. Random Ludwig Press is proud to announce the publication of Casey Kasem's America's Top Quandary, Long Distance Education. Within its pages, you'll finally discover, who are you? Who's zooming who? What's going on? What's up? Not only will this book reveal the actual retail price of that doggy in the window, we'll tell you who let the doggy out and detailed directions on the way to San Jose. If you've ever scratched your head to these puzzlers, wouldn't it be nice to order a copy today?
That's the client. Sing Out of the Box,
That's right? Singing Out of the Box.
Singing Out of the Box. All right, so this is going to be essentially a discussion about rock stars, country stars, pop stars, rap stars, I don't know, shooting stars who switched genres somewhere along the lines of their careers and either were successful or they failed miserably. It could be either, to be honest. So, Greg, I don't know if you have any ideas in terms of how to begin this particular discussion. But
I think there's various categories. There's some guys who just experiment for an album. You know, like Elvis Costello did a full-on country album in the middle when he was like a new wavy pop guy.
Yeah.
In between his, I believe, fourth and fifth albums. He also did later on. He did a lot of bands, rock stars will do jazz standards standards, not jazz standards. But I think that's a money grab. I think that like guys like Rod Stewart, they just got old, and so some people switch gears forever.
Well, I think maybe with Rod Stewart, I mean, he may have been attracted to the Great American Songbook because he put out numerous albums of doing the old standards.
Yeah, because it sold. It was the first time he sold a record in 30 years. So he's like, hey, I got to go this way. I'm a VH1 guy now.
But there's VH3.
And there's definitely other money grabbers, like certain bands that their career's on the way down, they can start doing kids records. If they have a kid-friendly sound, like they might be Giants.
Yeah.
A lot of kids records because nobody gives a shit about them anymore. And I know it's also a weird thing too. It's not necessarily a money grab, but when I was growing up, there's all these like hardcore punk dudes, total punk rock guys. And as they get older, for some reason, the genre they was going to is rockabilly.
Uh-huh. So there's somebody on TikTok, Greg, who wants us to sing a song.
What song?
I don't know. They don't know that they can't
Any
hear
song?
you though. So I think
so you have to sing a
basically
song.
me, because I would have to sing something for the person on TikTok. We've got one person on TikTok right now. I don't
You
know.
should sing for him. We have one fan. The least we can do is.
I don't know if I would call it a fan. It's just a person who happened to pop into the live stream. For those of you who want to hear both of us, you have to go to our YouTube channel, which is the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on YouTube, and you'll be able to see both.
Wait, on my TikTok stream,
Greg
I just
and
got a message. Greg, take off your shirt. And
You
rub
don't
your
have
nipples.
a TikTok stream, Greg. That's
I hacked yours.
that's
They
incorrect.
want me to take off my shirt and rub my nipples.
Do they? Is that what they want?
They said they're going to tip me.
I think the one who wanted to sing a song is gone now because somebody else has joined, and it says that we've only got one person, and they're gone too. So back
Because you
to
didn't sing
zero.
a song.
I know. I couldn't think of anything to sing. I can't do a cappella. I have to be able to read lyrics. I have to do it in the karaoke way.
I don't know if I like being in Ellen DeGeneres' coffee house. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable here.
How did you get to Ellen DeGeneres' coffee
seems
house?
The kind of, I don't know, fancy coffee house Ellen DeGeneres would go to.
Or are you talking about our background on YouTube right now?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? I thought somehow in your mind you had gone to a coffee house that was run by Ellen DeGeneres for whatever reason. So,
I spent
well, you know,
years-
it seemed more comfortable, but your head is gigantic as well in this case. So I think it's just because you're so close.
Yeah, it looks like I'm
to-
way heady. Like I'm.
Well, let's put us in front of the fireplace then. How about that? Yeah.
Lean back a little.
Is that better? Do you feel more homey in front of the
Yeah, it's
fireplace
still weird.
with the Zoom pumpkin behind
It's because the
us?
face ratio is odd.
Your face ratio is off. Anyway, so
It is.
so what are some of the biggest names of people who are successful whenever they change genres? I'm going to say Elvis Presley. Because he
Did he
went from
change
being
genres?
kind of like rock and he went from like rock and roll to kind of country-ish, easy listening type stuff.
That's just typical. That's selling out. That's every rock band does that. They make songs.
Every
for
rock
the-
band doesn't sell out in that
They,
way.
they make songs for the girlfriends as they get older. Everything gets mellower. Everything gets like a little more pop friendly because they want hits. A lot of hits.
I don't. I
Some
mean,
bands
because
stick to
Elvis
that.
was getting hits back in the day, so I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the same thing. You know,
But
doing
then
he did
probably
like
got more.
Battle Hymn of the Frickin' Republic. I don't know if that's selling out, Craig.
It probably sold a lot because he wanted another demographic.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's a different demographic. It's a different genre.
I know,
you're
but I think he
shifting.
still held his demographic because he still always played rock song, pop rock songs.
Yeah.
Like even in the 70s, he had Burning Love. It was a huge hit for him. Even when he was almost dead, like close to his death,
Yeah.
he still wrote rock songs. I mean, I know he had that comeback. So it's almost like he was trying to get back to his rock roots.
Right.
He's also doing stuff like In the Ghetto, which has
Right.
nothing to do with rock and roll. It's
Yeah, or
nice,
Suspicious Minds is kind of like a country-ish song.
I guess.
And Poke Salad Annie.
I don't know that one.
Oh,
But he always
okay.
had some country influence. I mean, there was a lot of country in some of his ballads and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could
But-
be his roots because he's from Tennessee initially, and
Yeah.
I mean, like he was like more of a rockabilly than a rock and roll guy. Anyway.
Yeah, he was on Sun Records, which was like some country artists on Sun Records, but then they were kind of morphed with rock and roll.
All right, well, let's look at some people who weren't at the end of their careers. So let's say Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift started as a country artist, selling CDs out of the back of her car. And then along the way, got really popular as a country artist, and then suddenly became a mainstream pop artist.
Because she
And
wanted more money.
But she became even huger as a mainstream
Of course.
pop artist. It's not
A
of
lot-
course, Greg.
A
Nobody
lot of country singers
people
do
don't
that.
necessarily. It's usually the other way around.
No,
you
the
know?
country market isn't as big as the pop market. Pop is basically
No,
called pop.
country is bigger than pop.
It's not.
Oh, yes, it is.
No.
It is. It is. It is.
If you have crossover hits, if you can
Yeah.
get that pop crowd.
Yeah.
But if you're just like pure country, like some guy like
Like Waylon Jennings.
and someone like him, yeah, Willie Jennings is never was on the top 40 when I was a kid.
He was with what was it? The theme from Dukes of Hazzard, I think,
Yes.
wasn't he?
That was a good song.
But Willie Nelson did. Willie Nelson had like 2 mainstream hits, didn't he?
Yeah, and they were like barely country. They were kind of wimpy ballads.
Yeah, but with a voice like Willie Nelson, it's always going to be country because
Yeah.
he sings through like a coffee strainer.
we're crappy. Country or shitty. But I see, that's what I mean. I think a lot of artists, like some artists we were talking about earlier, Tom
But
Waits.
I don't think Taylor Swift did it for money. I think she just wanted to go in that direction.
Really?
She was making a ton of money as a country
I want to
artist.
do insipid country, but now I want to do insipid pop. I have this calling to write.
I think it has to do with the insipidness of the person's personality, though.
She might have wanted to, like, maybe she does like some of the rock guitars in her song more. Like, oh, I like that rock sound because I grew up listening. She might have grown up listening to. She probably did grow up listening to Top 40.
I'm sure she listened to all of it. You know, there's a lot. I think a lot of those guys aren't so stuck in their ways they can't listen to other forms of music. You know,
but they have a calling. I mean, most artists, like, I'm a rock and roller. I like rock and roll until they get old. They stick with it. Then they mellow out, start doing ballads, and wimpy stuff.
Okay, so I mean, like Wayne Newton.
I don't think he ever started out rock.
He started out with Dankeschön.
Yeah.
Pronouncing it Dankeschön, though, because we're Americans and we pronounce everything wrong.
Dankeschön, oh, Dankeschön.
It's funny that guy, who is essentially like a child prodigy, and he had that one big hit, was able to parlay that into this huge career in Vegas for as long as he did. You know, whereas other people would be like a one-hit wonder and go nowhere. You know, it's just interesting how some people like can transition in that way to.
And it's weird that he was a child prodigy, and then his whole life, his face still looked like a child. He looked like some kind of microcephalic baby face on a man's body.
What is the definition of the word microcephalic?
Well, he wasn't a real pinhead, but it's water baby.
What's a water baby?
That's what they call them. That's what they used to call microcephalics.
It's like I've got to pull up the dictionary now because I don't.
And that is probably not okay today. Let me just say.
To say microcephalic?
In history books, it might be.
Or water baby.
You shouldn't call someone a water baby. It's not nice.
All right, so for those of you out there who are like me, don't know what this word means, microcephalic. Microcephaly, I guess that's how it's pronounced, is a birth defect where a baby's head is smaller than expected when compared to babies of the same sex and age. Babies with microcephaly often have smaller brains that might not have developed properly. So we know that's not Greg because he's got a gigantic head.
So a gigantic brain.
Could explain a lot of things. Right, you have like a whale's brain. But I don't see the term water baby here, though. So, water baby. I thought that's what they called you normally.
No, they call me Pepsi baby.
Pepsi
Bourbon baby.
Whiskey baby. Yeah, I'm not seeing water baby as even a derogatory term showing up.
It's pretty old-timey.
On Google. It's pretty old. That's why you know it?
I read a lot of old shit.
Yeah, I'm not seeing water baby. Fetal anasarca, also commonly referred to as water baby or walrus baby, is when a fetus is generalized subcutaneous edema and fluid accumulation. I don't think that's what we're looking for.
A walrus baby. I want a walrus baby. My biological walrus clock is ticking, and I want a walrus baby.
Sanchez Eldorado has popped onto YouTube, and he says he ain't nobody, and he said water-headed baby. So obviously I'm saying you are a water-headed baby.
Hi, Sanchez. Thanks for coming on.
Yes. We thank you for being our lone follower on YouTube.
Getting back to our client, I do think there's definitely guys who, like, for example, even though it was one album, Elvis Costello, it was not, even if it was commercial or not, it definitely wasn't. Nobody wanted to hear an old standard country album in 1983 from a new wavy type pop guy.
Well, he did that whole album with the string quartet too.
Yeah.
Which was just freakish. Yeah. You know, I actually really enjoyed it, but it was definitely not new wave.
No, I didn't like that album. I think that album was boring as hell. But
you know, I like the boring albums though. That a lot of people consider.
I do. So I think there's people like that, like Tom Waits, famously changed in mid-career. He was pretty successful. You know, not top 40, but he worked some huge songs for other bands.
Yeah,
had a pretty nice career. And then in the 80s, he just got. It's like he had a schizophrenic breakdown, and his music started sounding crazy and bizarre, and he stuck with that ever since.
Isn't that when he started singing with mallets and
Yeah,
car radiators
and megaphones, and
right.
crazy sounds, and like drums that were just played on a radiator, or on some old oatmeal boxes. But I mean, also writing songs that were different than anything he ever wrote before, like screaming, crazy, like howling wolf shit. And then, but his early career, he was a singer-songwriter, typical 70s, not typical, but
right. Well, he hadn't quite drunk enough whiskey at that point, I think. I think what happened was he hadn't sufficiently pickled himself to where he could write those songs. Hadn't, because his voice changed at a point too. Because he used to have a kind of a smoother type of voice in the early days. And then it started getting rough from a lot of cigarettes and a lot of whiskey.
Yeah. He could always do the rough, kind of rougher than most, but not like...
Right. I mean, I think part of that was kind of natural to his style. But it became very pronounced.
But to me, that is so different than someone like Taylor Swift. It's like, yeah, probably he realized there's a bigger market if you have the crossover, the whole pop spectrum. Maybe she really because just to say pop, it's not really like, oh, she has an artistic vision. She's writing the same kind of crappy song she always did, just with less country twang and more pop sensibilities of production. And I'm totally speaking from ignorance. I barely know any of her songs.
Yeah.
But I know they're crap. Sorry.
Just because they have to be, because they're pop.
And just like we were talking about too, like I think this whole Rod Stewart thing.
But she really got huge. I mean, nobody gets that big. I mean, that big without some type of talent, in terms of what they do.
Well, there's people who do that too. Olivia Newton-John was a country star when she first came out. She was filing.
Yeah, that's true. That is.
And she became huge, even though she was just doing ballads. She wasn't really rocking out, but
yeah. She rocked out with the Grease soundtrack.
Yes.
And then she shot her career in the foot with Xanadu. And that was that.
Some great songs in there, though. It's better than Physical.
Well,
I think that was her biggest hit of all. That was the shittiest song. And that, of course, was her biggest hit.
I think, again, her biggest hits came from the Grease soundtrack. But Physical was pretty huge. And I think Physical was really popular because, one, it was her. And another, it's like it was totally cashing in on the new fad
Jazzercise.
People working out at gyms, it was like really big back in the
that video. Speaking as a fat man, that video is very offensive if you watch it today.
You weren't a fat man then, though.
Yes, I was. I was fat my whole life.
You were a fat baby. You were a fat little boy, is what you were.
I was the biggest baby in my hospital. I told you that.
You're still the biggest baby in a hospital.
I know.
Unless I'm in the hospital too, then I'll beat you out.
I was almost 2 feet long when I was born, and I was 11 pounds and some change.
You were 2 feet long and 11 pounds?
I held the record at my local hospital for like 5 years, and then some fucking bitch knocked me off. Some bitch baby. Some baby bitch.
You're just like pissed off that some baby was fatter than you at the hospital.
Yeah, to this day, I want to meet her. That would be great if you fell in love.
You want to meet her. And you may have already. It could have happened.
No, I'd probably know. She'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm from your small town. I'd know.
That's right. You're from like, what was the name of the town again?
Mahopac.
Massaquoi.
No. The Susquehanna Hat Company. No.
What?
That's this famous old comedy, baby. Yeah, the Inch by Inch.
Oh, okay.
Slowly I turn.
It's a vaudeville thing?
I think it's like I'm still like, he says, don't mention the Susquehanna Hat Company to me. And it keeps coming up. I can't understand humor from back then. It doesn't make any sense, that bit.
Oh, I think you probably understand it far too well.
Really holds up is Who's on First.
It does. It's like a great hilarious bit of comic timing,
Yeah.
It totally works. So there is one particular artist that I was thinking of that did a very successful transition from kind of mainstream pop to disco. And that was the Bee Gees.
Bee Gees.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't think they did it as a cash grab. They did it because they were kind of exploring a new style of music. And it was all Eric Clapton's fault, from what I understand.
How? Do tell.
Well, the Bee Gees were basically going through a really down time. They weren't doing well musically and what have you. And Clapton had just gotten through recording 421 Riverside Avenue at this place in Florida. And he basically talked them into going there to record their next album. And as they were there, at one point, Barry Gibb happened to sing a falsetto note that he didn't know he could do. And so he then decided to do an entire song like that. And then he was like, I had this golden thing happen to me that I never knew I had before, which is like this falsetto, which all of those disco songs then got sung in. And that's what changed the face of music.
So then Robin and Maurice had to follow suit and be like, fuck.
Yeah, no, but Robin was the one who had the real pretty voice before.
Oh,
Robin
yeah.
Gibb, right? And he had to kind of take a back seat to Barry at that point. I got to give Barry credit, though. He had probably some of the best hair in music history.
Yeah.
That was like a mane that guy had. And it's kind of sad to see him in these later days where it's all thinned out.
Well, it's also weird because it's almost hard to believe they were really brothers. Like, I think they're, because he is so fucking handsome and virile. And then the other two are just,
they all had kind of that overbite, though.
Ugly. They're ugly, man.
And Andy was a good looking guy.
Yeah.
You know.
So it skipped. But those two, poor Maurice and Robin, they were like, they don't even look like brothers.
Yeah, but Maurice, or Mo, I think they called him, he did get to marry Lulu. So he had something going for him.
When you have money, it doesn't matter what you look like.
It matters a little bit.
Why do you think I get so many hot women?
Because of all your money?
Yeah. Well, my comic book.
You're that. They're coming after your comic book collection, Greg?
It's not liquid assets, but I'm sitting on.
It's liquid gold. It's liquid
like
in a bottle.
Scrooge. I'm like Uncle Scrooge with his money.
They're
vault.
coming for you and your alcoholism is what they're coming for.
Some people like to fix up a guy.
And here's another really interesting transition for a band. You're familiar with the band Pantera, right?
Yeah.
Pantera started off as a hair metal band. And they changed to black metal, dark metal, heavy metal.
What's that? Really much of a? I don't know if.
It is, because think about it. I mean, imagine if Queen had done something like that.
Well, Queen were like their own genre. Queen were like rock. I mean, they were all over the place for the first album.
Yeah, but they were basically a rock band. But they never went that type of music. That's what Pantera did. That's what Pantera changed it. It'd be like if Def Leppard did something like that, or Poison, or Motley Crue.
So Pantera were like that. They were like spandex.
Exactly. Like, and they had the hair, and then they went to they got a new lead singer who like shaved his head, and he sang like, you know, he had a goat in his throat. So
a goat in his throat.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Like an actual, like a goat is actually in his throat, not singing like a goat. It's like he actually ate a goat alive, and it's still in his throat. No, big chunks. He didn't even remove the fur. He was just like piece by piece. Just was into goat. What was his name? Phil Anselmo is the name of the lead singer.
I always call that shit barking dog metal. Does it sound like to be just like?
It is an odd form of music. I mean, like people are really into it, you know. But yeah, I never quite got it. I never quite sunk in. So, and then you got all those guys who started in gospel and who then went to say like Motown or
that's money.
Well, it's money, but at the same time, it was a total crossing of genres because it was very hard to break out of those gospel tracks if you had a very religious family. You know, you had to like fight to do it. And I think it could have been money, but it could also been that they were changing their personal viewpoints and philosophies, and that's why they went that way. And they brought gospel. Like Sam Cooke is one. Like Sam Cooke was huge in the gospel community.
Well, that's why they called it soul, because so many of those guys were gospel singers. They had that same emotive gospel sound.
I think you're wrong. I think they called it soul because they walked a lot.
Because they like fish.
Right.
They were pescatarians. See, I can dad joke with the best of them, Matt.
Can you?
Seriously,
just because you're in your 50s, you get to be a dad joker.
I do want to say I think I misspoke, because you're right. I'm sure they definitely made more money, but I'm sure some of them were so annoyed of just like, oh, I got to sing about Jesus again.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they're annoyed about that, or that's how they started. You know.
But I'm sure some of them were like artists who were like, I'd like to sing a song about something else for once, about falling in love.
I mean, that makes sense just in general. Well, like Ray
Yeah.
Charles, Ray Charles, like, totally went out of it. I'm sure Stevie Wonder probably started in gospel as well.
Oh, Ray Charles is a perfect one. Totally started as like an R&B guy.
Yeah.
And then he became country for a long time. He always would do like, they know what I say. But he had a lot of country albums.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know he did a lot of country songs. And then one that's a little more current, at least to the 90s. So we have Darius Rucker from Hoodie and the Blowfish, who, that was a relatively successful pop rock band. They had they had like 3 or 4 big hits. That was pretty much it.
No, but I mean, those first 2 albums or whatever the albums that were big, they were like mega platinum. They were the biggest band in America.
Right, but still just 3 to 4 big hits, right? And then they kind of faded away. And then next thing you know, Darius Rucker pops up on the country charts, a full-blown country star. I mean, like,
he does
literally.
That Wagon Wheel song, right?
Yeah, he covered that.
Oh, that's a cover.
It's a cover. It's a cover. Actually, I bet you don't know who originally wrote it, do you, Greg?
It sounded familiar the first time I heard it, though. I was like,
it was originally created by Bob Dylan.
Was that one of his bootleg albums?
I was expecting the jaw to drop. I think it came out of the movie Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I think he wrote it kind of for that movie. And it's not really that song, but then there's this band called Old Crow Medicine Show that turned it into the song Wagon Wheel, which then Darius Rucker then covered and made it even huger in his own pop country way. And it's interesting. I think it was time for somebody like Darius Rucker to come in because there was not so many African American singers in country music, especially since Charlie Pride had died. So they needed a replacement. So I think that was the whole plan.
There was one.
That's right.
Every time you'd watch Hee Haw or something, or great,
it's Charlie Pride. They brought him out, to show that they're diverse.
Yeah,
that's right. They're diverse because Charlie Pride sings country music. So now Darius Rucker replaced Charlie Pride, and he'll probably grow old as a country star as well.
That's kind of amazing when you think about Charlie Pride. I think he started in the 60s when they were still civil rights. Yeah. You couldn't go to hotels. So he was probably playing to audiences that probably hated his guts.
Maybe he was like that Dave Chappelle character that thought he was like a white person,
but
he was black and he was in the Klan.
Could be.
I don't know. So what other? Well, actually, I think right now is a good time to move into our cooking segment for everybody. So again, if you're watching this on TikTok, and right now there's nobody on TikTok watching, but at least for Sanchez El Dorado, he'll get to see the next edition of Waspy Soda Pop. So as we set that up, it's going to be full-blown excitement, I believe. Full-blown. Oh, wait, I do need
full-blown.
Full-blown.
At Safe Mart, it's a Safe Mart. Time to Safe Mart and be safe.
Safe Mart is a proud sponsor of Food is for Eating with Waspy Soda Pop. Today's special, 1 pound of glorious head cheese for $1.99. Come get some at Safe Mart. Be safe.
Food is for eating. Food is for eating. Food is for eating with Waspy Soda Pop.
Hey there, everybody. This is Waspy Soda Pop with another episode of Food is for Eating. I got a great recipe for you today. This is a family tradition. Goes back to the very first soda pop, going way back in olden times. These are Waspy's Bouncing Meatballs. Here are your ingredients. Get a half an onion minced, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 1 pound of ground beef, 16 red small rubber balls to taste, 1 cup of whole milk ricotta cheese, 1/4 cup packed chopped Italian parsley, 1 egg beaten, 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, 1 pinch of cayenne pepper or to taste, 1/3 cup dry breadcrumbs, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 28-ounce jar of marinara sauce, and a cup of water. That's all. All right, let's make them. First, you want to saute your onion in 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a skillet over medium heat till the onion is translucent. About 5 minutes. Stir the garlic into the onion, then turn off the heat. Transfer the onion mixture to a large mixing bowl. Stir your ground beef, your ricotta cheese, the parsley, the egg, the kosher salt, black pepper, and the way you can tell the kosher salt is if it's circumcised. Anyway, and the cayenne pepper with onion mixture until almost combined. Stir in breadcrumbs and continue to mix until thoroughly blend. I'm having trouble talking today, everybody. You want to stir in the breadcrumbs and continue to mix until thoroughly blended. Roll about 2 tablespoons of the mixture over top of one of the red rubber balls for each meatball. Meatball. Pour 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the same skillet used to cook the onions. Place the skillet over medium heat. Brown the meatballs on all sides in hot oil about 5 minutes. Hold a crumpled paper towel in tongs. Use it to remove excess grease from the skillet. And finally, pour marinara sauce and water over the meatballs in the skillet. Stir to combine and bring to a simmer. Reduce heat to medium-low and simmer, stirring occasionally until the meatballs are cooked through and no longer pink in the center because they're red. They're red rubber balls. About 30 minutes. You know they're done when you drop them and they bounce off the floor. Don't eat that one. That's just for testing. Anyway, this has been Waspy's Bouncing Meatballs. You're going to love these. They're a little chewy, but you're going to love them. This is Waspy Soda Pop. Food is for eating. They're bouncing balls.
The ingredients of that recipe were like a week's shopping. Like for a family of 5. What was it in those meatballs?
What was in
M&Ms,
well,
I guess.
No, I mean, it was basic ingredients. The one different part of the meatballs is the fact that in the center of the meatball was a red rubber ball. And I think that's what makes them extra special. And probably why it was called Waspy's Bouncing Meatballs.
Like on top of spaghetti?
Spaghetti wasn't even mentioned. Marinara sauce was mentioned, but
spaghetti
was not.
Was that a tribute to the 60s band, The Circle? With
No, I understand.
Red rubber ball.
Did they change genres? The band Circle? Or were they called The Circle or Circle?
I think were they this with a Y, I think. This
right, it was Cyrkle, I believe was the spelling for that. But I'm sure Sanchez Eldorado knows. He's a big fan of Waspy, he says on YouTube.
The Circle were like a pop band, but then they became Nazi punk in the late 70s. It was kind of sad.
That's why they spelled their name that way, so they could get away with being Nazi punk band. Well, what about, I think a slight change of genre was Dave Grohl going from Nirvana to Foo Fighters, where he went from grunge rock to basic.
Man, it seems like he just mellowed out.
He kind of went to hair metal, is what
I think Nirvana was.
He became a hair band.
If Kurt Cobain didn't die, they might have written those albums.
Well, for a second there, it sounded like you said Urkel Cobain, which would have been a completely different band. Like if Urkel had been Kurt Cobain, if Urkel was the one who'd sang "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Did I do that?
That's but you have to. What's the lyric from Nirvana from that song?
An albino, a mosquito. Did I do that?
That was perfect. You did that so well.
I have a very nasally, obnoxious voice, just like Urkel.
Nasally and obnoxious. All right, well, that should take us right into our next segment. And, of course, everyone loves this segment. This is the segment where people get to ask Greg a question.
I think I'm too sad to do this.
He has an opinion, may not always be right. He's a real fake lawyer. He's old and he's white. Ask him a question, 'cause he's a good egg. For bogus advice, ask Greg. Ask Greg? Ask Greg!
I liked how your eyes were blinking in time to the music.
I wasn't planning that. That's how good my rhythm is. I can't help it.
Your eyes are just like blinking. It's like, what's wrong with him? Why is he blinking? All right, so what's the question for Greg today? Dear Greg, if I was a country star and I wanted to be a regular pop star, what are the legal hoops I have to go through to make sure I get paid? Think carefully, Greg. Give us some good fake legal advice.
Yeah, the question has nothing to do with the law. There's no there's no reason why you wouldn't get paid.
Well, I think it would be contract law, would it? Wouldn't it be contract? You'd have to get the proper contract. That's illegal.
There's no contract that says you must remain a country star forever. So I'm just saying though, but there are many other hurdles to going from country to. So you definitely have to throw your maggot hat away.
Your maggot. You have a maggot hat made of maggots?
No, maggot hat.
Not a maggot.
Make America great again. You got to throw that shit away. You can't play Trump rallies anymore. Okay. Because you're gonna lose a lot of your audience. A lot of the rock audience, pop audience.
Yeah.
Skews more.
Unless you're Ted Nugent or Kid Rock.
And yeah, look at their careers. Ted Nugent's not doing very well musically. But yes, for has-beens. But you probably have to start doing more drugs. Preferably heroin, because that's a cool drug. Rock stars do heroin. Yeah, if you want to be cool, do heroin.
But again, Nugent didn't do heroin.
Well, yeah, because he's a shitty rock star. He's not very good at it. Yeah, don't take up bow hunting. If you want to be like Ted Nugent, take up bow hunting. But if you want to be a real pop star, take up drugs. You're gonna have to dress more flamboyantly. You can't just dress in your jeans anymore.
What about the guys from Weezer?
Well, that's another. I'm saying major pop stars. I was thinking pop like Taylor Swift. Spears.
Okay, or like Kesha.
Kesha, yeah, Kesha can't just be on stage with, dressed like Weezer.
Can you imagine if Dolly Parton dressed like Kesha or Lady Gaga?
God, I dream of that every night. She's still hot, even though she's all fake. She's 96% silicone at this point.
I thought you were saying she's 96 years old.
I think she's getting there.
On a completely similar, not a completely different note, but a similar note, I was thinking of Linda Ronstadt in terms of a genre-crossing person.
Yeah.
She definitely marched to a different drum. Pardon the pun. I had to do it. But she started off as basically a pop rock singer, did country, but then where she did incredibly well was in Spanish music.
Yeah.
Where she had like the biggest selling Spanish-speaking record in the United States, and she wasn't even a Spanish artist, even though she actually has Hispanic roots.
Yeah.
Even though Ronstadt sounds like it's a German name, and it is a German name, it was her grandfather or somebody had emigrated to Mexico. And so she was raised with Spanish music. I was watching this documentary with her where she thought that it's like you speak in Spanish or you speak in English and you sing in Spanish or something like that. Like that's what you're supposed to do. So
but that also seems like one of those basically, let's call it a midlife crisis type thing where she had no career for a long time.
No, she didn't. She was pretty solid throughout her career.
Through the 80s, she had nothing.
She was doing country music.
Yeah, in the early 80s, she had that one, with Emmylou Harris. That was kind of big. Remember
it was her, Emmylou Harris, and Dolly Parton, which is what made me think about that.
Yeah, but her solo album was like, she was gone she was not making much money. And then luckily she found this little thing.
It wasn't a lucky thing. She decided to do Mexican music.
She probably did, but it just seemed like
for you, it's always about the money. It's like people can't actually have a good reason to do something different. It's like it's gotta be about the money. It can't be about something that's driving them. It can't be about something that they want to do. It's gotta only be about the money. That's why Greg is in dishwashing, because he did it for the money. Only the money, not because it's his art. That's because of the thing that he wants to do
because
for the
I
rest
would
of his
not
life.
compromise my art. I would not compromise my art, and that is why I'm a dishwasher and not living off the royalties of my pop rock songs.
Okay, well, I'll buy that.
I'm kidding. Many punk bands have made it and made some money, but I did not because I was always fucking up and drunk on stage.
Now, wasn't there like a punk singer who had did a major genre crossing? Didn't Johnny Rotten do that?
Kind of. I mean, it was just that seems like a very honest one where he just, there was all those post-punk bands that got weird. Like so many of those new wave bands of the 80s that are so wimpy and shit, they were like great punk bands like 4 years earlier. 78, they're these amazing punk bands. But then by the early 80s, it just seemed like punk was dead. Everyone wanted to explore new territory. So I just think he was like, just grew beyond that simple punk because, he wanted to do other things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a different genre. It's just post-punk is just basically like, it's like softer. It's not as loud and aggressive.
Was he the one who was in Public Image Limited, or is that one of the guys from The Clash?
No, that's John Lydon was in.
Okay.
Johnny Rotten.
John Lydon.
But he also did. He did do one of the earliest rap singles. Because I mean, there was rap guys since the mid-70s, but a lot of them didn't have. They were in the Bronx or something. They were poor kids.
Oh,
they couldn't get record contracts. But he did that duet with Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah, but speaking of guys who were in punk, who went into rap, the Beastie Boys.
Yes, that's a big one.
That was like a major genre shift, and that's because they connected with Rick Rubin, the producer. Rick Rubin's the guy who made Johnny Cash's career come back to life back shortly before he passed. And,
a lot of guys' career.
He did like he did the Neil Diamond album as well.
It didn't work as well with Neil Diamond, yeah.
No, it didn't. It didn't turn him into like a household. But Neil Diamond wasn't close to death either, I think, at the time, and I think that's where Hurt really caught on was because it was a Nine Inch Nails song. So I don't think Diamond was doing covers of other people's songs. He was just.
Have you ever heard that Neil Diamond Rick Rubin album? I want to hear it now.
No, but the other thing Rick Rubin did was, and this is a band that I grew to enjoy over the course of the pandemic, was the Avett Brothers, and he was responsible for one of their very popular.
Oh, you sing them at karaoke, yeah.
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah,
they're good. I like their songs. Just your interpretation of them. I don't know what they sound like.
Yeah, well, they're pleasing to.
They're well written songs.
They are. They put their heart and their soul in.
Maybe you're singing them better than they are. Maybe I hear them and I'm like, oh, Matt is better than this shit.
Nah, I'm not. Actually, one of the guys from the Avett Brothers is married to, or he's dating. At least he had a kid with the sister of Dexter in the show Dexter. There's a piece of useless information for you.
I kind of like her. I love that actress.
Don't know what her name is.
Nobody does. Nobody ever will.
I think her husband probably does, or her boyfriend, or whoever.
I would hope so.
People who are close to them probably know what their names are. It's generally the case.
Hopefully.
That actually made me think of all the actors out there who I really enjoy their work, but I never learn what their names are. It's a very sad thing when you don't.
It's like that guy.
You don't go out of your way to find out what somebody's name is. Like there's this one actor who I really, really like, and I tell you, it took me probably 10 years to finally remember his name.
Yeah.
And he's this African American actor. He's in Westworld. He's in Bond movies, and
he's a character actor. Is that why he's a character?
Kind of, sort of character actor. Not necessarily full lead, but he was a lead in Westworld, in the show Westworld. And he played the CIA agent in the Bond movies, So again, not a lead, but a major character.
Yeah.
Recently he was in the newest movie from Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch. And
I saw that.
All right, so it's Jeffrey Wright is the name of the actor.
Wait, who's he? What is
exactly
he?
Right? Exactly.
Oh, I love that guy. Yeah, I just saw the French Dispatch and I was like, that guy. This is great.
That guy. What the hell's his name? But I tell you, I would like see him. I'm like, oh yeah, I really like that. Like, what's his name? And I'd watch for the credits. I'd find his name, and then probably in like 48 hours, I've forgotten the name again. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me? I'm like, I'm really that old. Like things just are not retained anymore. That kind of.
I just had this great image though of the wedding of Dexter's sister in real life, whatever her name is, when she gets married to her husband, that the priest says, "Do you take Dexter's sister to be your lawfully wedded wife?"
It might have happened.
Yeah,
it could have happened. And then Dexter comes out and kills the other brother from the Avett Brothers, so there's no competition.
Yes,
because there's two Avett Brothers. Oh, there might be a third one. Is there a third one? I don't know. Anyway, so so there's got to be, actually the Avett Brothers are a similar, they did switch genres as well too. They started off, at least the brothers, and they started off separately in rock bands, and they came together and they created, it's essentially like Americana, like country-ish type music.
Alt country? Remember that
Not
genre?
Quite, yeah, maybe a little alt country, but more like Americana music, because they throw the banjo in, but they also can do like rock songs. So they still kind of walk those genre lines, I suppose. You know, so that, yeah, that'd be another one. And like Mumford and Sons too. Mumford and Sons, they were doing like this straight acoustic folk type rock music, and then one of their later albums became like full blown electric. It's kind of like what they did a Dylan thing. They just went to
Oh
like
yeah.
straight electric album.
Did people hate it? Did people say Judas?
I think
Judas!
people. I don't think it sold as well as the earlier albums
Yeah.
did. You know, because they were expecting more of the jangling guitar and banjo and the one-footed drum playing.
And the penny whistle and the ukulele and the
Right, the penny whistle, the
dulcet-
bagpipes, right, the hammer dulcet, the harpsichord that they would bring out on
the
occasion.
lute.
Right. What was this instrument I just came across? It was like a glass keyboard or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it's
You
essentially
mean the
this
one where you go
device.
like this?
It was created by Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, the water, different levels.
I don't know. It's like
And
a
you rub
water piano, or I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, those
at all.
that sounds so. Those almost sound like a synthesizer or a moog,
Slightly, the kind of eerie sounding.
or like a theremin. They just have that.
A theremin is quite the different instrument. You know, like why isn't there like a full blown, like a fully created theremin band?
Like an
Where
orchestra.
people play different types of theremins in their in a band. Like everybody had one.
I saw a John
Probably 'cause
Spencer
it would
Blues
suck.
Explosion back in the '90s when they
Oh.
were a thing, and every now and then it whipped that theremin out, and it was just like watching The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like it'd just be like all.
Excuse me while I whip out this theremin.
Yeah, because it's all about like how close you get to it, but he was all dramatic about it, like all like just like, and it was so cool. It was just like, it was a great show. I mean, way to use the theremin for like performance purposes. It was so just great.
Have you ever thought about getting a theremin for yourself?
No, I would love one. I'm too, you know me, man. I'm poor. I'm the little match girl.
I bet you could find them inexpensively at some pawn shop or something.
Yeah.
For
I don't
like,
think
because people won't know what it is. It's like this is like this little piece of metal sticking up, and this piece of metal going this way. It's got a little knob. It's all little thingies. It's tiny.
They're pretty cool.
It's the size of their pinky. It's like a little baby theremin.
But I think there's
A little
always gonna
newborn,
be,
little prematurely born theremin.
I think like a preemie. I think really, really good artists though. I think they do change gears. Like Dylan did a country album.
Yeah.
Well, he did, and then he did a Christian rock album. Technically, and it
Oh,
was
that's
kind
true.
of failed just because he became Christian. But like all the other things, it just seems like, oh, that's just like a career choice. Like, hey, this is selling big now. Like all those bands in the '60s who were like, the Beatles are out. We're gonna call ourselves the Liverpoolians. And
I think
change
some
their-
people consider that the Beatles changed genres.
Yeah, they were real artists though. I think they were following their own muse. And just
They were doing like rockabilly in the beginning, or pop songs as well, and then they went kind of psychedelic in the end. There, they became like acid rock.
yeah, I think that's just a progression of rock at the time. That was the tenor of the times.
Well,
But they started.
that's where the genre goes different.
Yeah.
It becomes like a different genre. It's a nuance of a larger genre. Because you can say that all rock is pop too. You could say rock music is pop music.
Sure, yeah.
So it's all like sub genres as things change.
Yeah. What's really sad is in the '60s, like I loved garage. I mean, not when I was a kid, but I discovered all these great '60s bands like the Sonics, just really rock and roll, primal garage rock energy. And then by '67, '68, they all went psych, which meant they went wimpy. Basically like all those great garage bands that were writing these awesome rockin', dirty, grungy songs, like from Nuggets. All of a sudden they were like, because the hippies were the thing. It was cool to be a hippie. They started writing these songs about tangerine elephants and just like these wimpy psych rock songs, like, and it's just like that seemed to me like you're not really. Maybe they did drop acid and want to write that shit because that's what happened. That the Beatles did start doing drugs and they wanted to expand their musical palettes, but some of these bands it just seemed like, dude, you were so.
That reminds me though. I just totally forgot about Robert Plant. So Robert Plant in recent years has been doing these duets with Alison Krauss. So he's kind of gone into country music himself.
Is Alison Krauss? When I worked at a record store, we put her in folk.
She's definitely
country.
She's definitely country.
Really?
But she may be folky Americana country, you know, maybe like all country, you know.
Basically real country. Because country is just like shitty pop with a little twang guitar. The big country artists, it's not really country. It's not Hank Williams. There's no guys out there on the top of the country charts who sound like the great old country.
Well, there is one guy who's kind of gone more old school and he's brought kind of that old school sound back.
Which guy?
That's Chris Stapleton.
Oh, is he like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's got some pop sounding stuff as well, but he's gotten more of the old school sound back. That's why a lot of people like him, because he's brought more of the twang back, and he's got like the deep country voice, which a lot of people don't necessarily have.
I remember that's like Dwight Yoakam was all about in the 80s. Like, because by the 80s, country was pretty neutered. It was pretty pathetic. It was like, you know, ready to play Reno or Vegas. It was that kind of just insipid.
Not even Vegas. It's got to be Reno or Carson City. It's only good enough for Carson City. It's not good enough for Vegas or Reno.
What's the one the town that's like this nice Vegas for good Christian people? Where it's
Provo.
No, there's a town where it's like it's Vegas, but there's none of the sand or anything. Like, it's just like you can gamble and you can watch shitty, you know, shows like, oh, Marie Osmond's gonna sing tonight. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think you're thinking of Branson, Missouri.
Yes, that's it, Branson. Yeah,
not Vegas.
No, but Branson is like a clean Vegas. Branson is like,
I don't know that it's clean, but it's basically a place where old country stars go to die.
Yeah, really bad ones, insipid ones.
I think that's where like Barry, what the hell's his last name? Barry Williams from the Brady Bunch wound up having a career, was in Branson, Missouri.
Yeah. I could probably have a career in Branson, Missouri.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if you could do, but...
no, you could, because you have a better voice.
I think that Joe Piscopo did as well. He had like something in Branson, Missouri.
That's perfect. That just makes so much sense. The one place where Joe Piscopo was considered funny is Branson, Missouri.
I think that's like where all of the Saturday Night Live actors who nobody heard of after they left Saturday Night Live, they all go to Branson, Missouri.
Or Fox News.
Fox News?
Like Dennis Miller.
Oh, Dennis Miller's not on Fox News, is he?
Hey, he's actually on it sometimes because he's a big right-wing pundit. But there's that blonde, horrible Saturday Night Live alumni. 80s, the shit years, except for Eddie Murphy. Remember those years where it was Eddie Murphy and then all those other shit guys?
It was Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, well, Joe Piscopo just rode his coattails, but
yeah,
the other people were totally
Piscopo
great.
actually admits to it as well.
She was a blonde.
But you know, I liked Tim Kazurinsky.
Oh, he was from SCTV, yeah.
I liked him from that show.
He was great.
Yeah, I mean,
he was.
He's apparently had a big Broadway career since he left Saturday Night Live.
Really? I just wanted to say, like, what the fuck happened to that guy? Because
one day I decided to look him up, and I was like, oh, that's what happened to him.
Yeah,
and
but he's all those SCTV guys. They're funny. SCTV is like a good boot camp for humor.
And then Robin Duke was kind of funny as well. I don't know if you remember.
She was, but I'm thinking of it's not an SCTV person. She was on Saturday Night Live, and she had a little girl voice that was her little stick, like
Victoria Jackson.
Yes, she became a whole like fucking right wing, guest appearing on Fox morning show and shit. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sad.
Well, I guess.
Sad.
It depends if she was funny or not. Was she funny?
No, she was never funny. She was so bad. But that's a sign of like, yeah, of course you're gonna.
But she wasn't part of the group that was with Kazurinsky and Eddie Murphy, though. She came later.
She was around that.
Nah,
early 80s.
She came in when Lorne Michaels had come back.
Really?
Yeah, Lorne Michaels was gone for like 3 years, and he came back. I think she might have been on when like Christopher Guest and Billy Crystal were on.
No, but Eddie Murphy was on when Lorne Michaels came back.
No.
He was.
No,
'Cause
he
it was
was
a
on
dead
when the
year.
other guy was there.
It was a shit year with no one. And there was like a couple, then Eddie Murphy wasn't a star yet. So it was a couple of years where he was growing.
Yeah.
And he stayed on for a while. I mean, okay, this is neither here nor there.
That's when Lorne Michaels changed genres.
To become a hack.
He left Saturday Night Live to do, we don't know what he did for those years. Maybe bring Kids in the Hall together or something. I don't know. No, they were there in the 90s, but yeah, I don't know.
That was a little later. Kids in the Hall was a little later.
Yeah, they were the 90s. And I thought it was nice that they allowed like one guy from Kids in the Hall to make it onto Saturday Night Live, but only one guy from Kids in the Hall. They should have had more than one guy.
Yeah, they were all better than anyone on Saturday Night
Live. At the time. I don't know if they were better than everyone. I mean, there are some really talented people on Saturday Night Live. You know, any of the casts have at least one or two brilliant performers. Even the seasons that suck, you know.
Not the season after like Belushi and Wagner left. That was Charles.
That was Eddie Murphy.
No, the first year he wasn't there yet. It was like that guy Charles Rocket. Remember
Charles? I think he killed himself.
He was the star.
Didn't he commit suicide?
I don't know.
Charlie Rocket. Well, no, it was him. It was Julia Louis-Dreyfus was on at that time.
Yeah,
and
shit.
She wasn't that funny. Gilbert Gottfried was on.
I think that was a year later.
So we're like quibbling over a year?
I guess I'm saying there was that year that was just so
It was
bad.
more than 1 year that Lorne Michaels was gone.
I know, but that first year, there was just no one. It was just like a wasteland. And Charles Rocket, that's what I was saying. Charles Rocket was the star.
I don't know. I don't know that he was the star. He was doing the Weekend Update, though.
And I think he's probably the first guy to say the word fuck on national TV.
No way.
Because remember that?
You're lying to me now.
They did a Who Shot JR parody and Who Shot Charles Rocket. So at the end, you know when they waved goodbye to the audience at the end of Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
Charles Rocket came out and he just said, I just want to know who the fuck killed me. And it was live. And that's why he didn't come back the next year. I seen it with my own eyes. I seen it.
So apparently, Lorne Michaels was only gone for a year. I thought he was gone for longer than that.
I thought so, yeah. It was that they got some guy who knew nothing about comedy. I think he was from NBC Sports.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy was on that year.
But he didn't.
It was Gilbert Gottfried, Joe Piscopo, Gail Mathias, Eddie Murphy, Ann Risley, and Charles Rocket, who was apparently he was being groomed to be the new breakout star.
Yeah.
So, and then she did not accept Jim Carrey, John Goodman, or Paul Rubens to join.
Whoa.
She passed on them.
Oh, Christine Ebersol. Is that what you're talking about?
Dick Ebersol was...
then why'd you say she? Yeah, Dick Ebersol.
She was somebody named Jean Doumanian. She was the one who hired these people.
Yeah, but Dick Ebersol took over. He was from NBC Sports.
He was the one who produced it.
Yeah, he was from NBC Sports.
Yeah.
He knew nothing about comedy. And then Christine Ebersol was on the show, I think, a year later.
And then Ebersol fired basically everybody else and left Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo on.
I mean, I gotta say, I thought Joe Piscopo, I liked his Sinatra.
Yeah.
He didn't become as obnoxious as he became. Like he was kind of funny.
Yeah, sometimes. He had his moments.
Yeah.
You know, he did a great Sinatra. You got to give him credit for that. You know, he was pretty funny. Although Phil Hartman kind of took it over from him later and became a better Sinatra.
Yeah.
And Phil Hartman was amazing.
Genius.
You know.
Do you know Phil Hartman was the only celebrity death in my life I've ever really felt bummed about? Like Kurt Cobain when he died, I was already done with Nirvana, so I didn't care.
You were bummed about John Belushi?
No.
Really?
I was like, yeah.
You didn't like John Belushi?
I thought he was okay. I never thought I just thought he was like a big goof who's like, wow, this guy will do anything. He's like your friend in high school will just do anything. So you're kind of like, he's zany. But Phil Hartman was just like surgical precision comedy. Like he thought about comedy. His voice. I mean, look at The Simpsons. Oh shit, The Simpsons. That's the reason you should watch The Simpsons. Some of Phil Hartman's best performances are in The Simpsons characters.
You know, I mean, the thing is that there's a number of talented people on that show. It's still a cartoon, and that's the thing that it's difficult for me to get past. You know, I don't know why it's difficult for me to get past it, but it's just this thing, you know, that I got.
Yeah.
I got an itchy wit.
Okay, we've gotten so far off the client.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, you know, it's basically near the end of our show. So, what was the show? The client was Singin Out of the Box. And so we talked about many people who changed genres, and I don't know what our point was to this conversation other than just having the conversation about it. I don't know if anybody's
been talk about
or maligned or
ideas because we're old and out of ideas.
Because all we can do is sit here and share things to each other just to pass the time until we die. Then that's it.
Next week, the client will be...
Next week, we're dying on the show, everybody.
Next week, the client will be salves and balms.
It's going to be a fight between Ben Gay and Biofreeze.
And we're going to talk about joints.
And then it'll be a double suicide at the end. But it'll be euthanasia because we'll do it to each other through Zoom somehow.
We'll talk about the dropsy.
The dropsy.
On trial. Dropsy. The dropsy.
Everyone gets to learn what the long-term effects of syphilis actually are. This is how we go.
Starting a podcast with no clue.
Right.
That's
okay, well, on that note, anytime syphilis enters the room, it's time to end things off.
Yeah, way to kill the mood.
We're hoping that Brendan does return one of these days. We did draw on his face a little bit.
But until he does, he's going to have that on his face. Because we don't want to do false advertising. Like, we don't want you to come here expecting, oh, Brendan, the Fonzie of the show, isn't there. It's like Happy Days without Fonzie.
Yeah.
So,
he's become the Scott Baio of the show.
No.
He's the Chachi now.
He's become the Archie Bunker's place.
Who was the character in the show that was always talked about but you never saw? Wasn't there somebody? I don't recall.
You know what I just heard is, do you remember Chuck, Richie's brother from the first season on Happy Days?
Oh yeah. He was
he had
like
a brother.
Right. Yeah, he showed up in like the first episode or something.
And
like
he
the pilot.
Barely did anything. He'd always just be there so Richie could every night say, "Hey Chuck, can I borrow your car?" And he'd say maybe a one-liner.
It's like they'd get Joni, but they'd never deal with the older.
At the end of the last season, there's something like a scene where Chuck is just like he lived in the apartment over the garage where Fonzie ended up living.
Oh, okay.
And so
well,
like,
maybe he actually lived there with Fonzie.
No, what happened was he walked up to the stairs. Like the last time you see Chuck, he's like, "Okay, I'm going up to my room." And then he never came back.
It's actually Happy Days is actually a ghost story.
They never wrote him. They never brought him back. They never mentioned him. He was written out of the whole thing. They never mentioned that you have a brother, Richie. Wait, how's Chuck doing in Alaska or wherever he might have gone? No, he just walked up those stairs to like Narnia.
It's kind of like those guys who were like the original announcers for Big Brother and American Idol, and they were there for the first season, and then they just disappeared and you never saw them again.
But they're just announcers, so they're part of the plot.
Well, they were like part of the thing, like they were talked to and they had roles where they would speak and say stuff involving whatever the hell is going on. So they had important jobs, so to speak, but then they were just removed and the others were kept, but they were taken away. Like, I think Patton Oswalt was on American Idol in the beginning.
Really?
And he was one of the guys who got fired.
He seems too good for that. Yeah, they didn't recognize. I think Joe Piscopo was on Big Brother. He was the judge or the announcer.
No, it was some other guy who just kind of like disappeared after the first season. Anyway, all right. Well, we're going to end off. So this has been the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. We had 244 likes today on TikTok, Greg.
Peace out.
So TikTok, we're going to say goodbye to you.
I'm bringing this back. Peace out.
Peace out. Yeah, no one does that anymore. And now we'll be ending the live stream on the YouTube. So this has been the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Our client has been Singin Out of the Box.